Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a historical fiction author, international best-selling ghost writer, and the founder of the Writer's Manor, none other than Mr. Joel Harris.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Mr. Joel, a Book 101 review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yeah, sure. You did an excellent job. So thank you very much for having me. Yeah, this is my his first historical novel. I have written some thriller, action, adventure stories. Yeah, there you go. Thousand Bayonets was the first one. And yeah, they did very well. The first one won the Pinnacle Achievement Award. Um, I'm a journalist. I've kind of done a lot of different things, worn a lot of different hats. I I was a screenwriter. I've been a film producer. Uh, lately, I've started the Writers Manor to help other writers finish their books. And I guess like primarily I do ghostwriting for my daytime job. And yeah, I've written over fifty books, some bestsellers, some have won awards. And just like all types of genres, I would say. I have done obviously business books. I've done a lot of memoir, autobiographies. I've even done children's books. I'm working on a cookbook. So yeah, you name it. But yeah, primarily, I want to my book is about is called The Ivory General, and it's set during the Second Punic War. And it primarily has two characters. One is the Carthaginian noble, and another is a Roman noble. And it's told from their two perspectives, and as they fight each other, and they grow up really fast. They're just two boys at the beginning, and they learn sort of the costs of war. And it's a first in a series. It's going to be a trilogy. And yeah, so I'm just really excited to finally get it out. I've been working on it for 8 years. um and so yeah, just really excited to be able to publish it.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Joel. Thank you. And today let's talk about how learning disabilities made you better writer.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with learning disabilities in grade 2. And essentially I couldn't read or write at a very early age. And obviously that's a very it's very difficult to become an author when you can't do those things, right?
Yes.
And so I was held back in grade 2. And I was absolutely devastated. I remember watching my classmates, because we were all sitting around the circle, and everyone was told what class they're going to go to. And I was told that I had to stay put and say and repeat the year. And that was how I found out. um and so yeah, I was absolutely devastated. I thought, all these feelings kind of came up. I was not good enough. I couldn't match the skills and the learning of my classmates. I eventually went to a special school for people with learning disabilities. It was I was never like really, I would say it's like probably diagnosed as dyslexia for today, but back then it was just like a common term that people sort of diagnosed me with. And it wasn't really a specific, I guess, like I wasn't put in a specific box. But I was able to get more time on tests, and I got special attention, and smaller class size and all that. So eventually I was able to catch up with my peers, I think. still terrible at math and sort of like those sort of processing skills. But yeah, I eventually learned to read and write, and I think that kind of struggling at a young age for these skills, it sort of just made them more precious to me. I was able um, to kind of, I think I was able to hold on to them tighter, right? And I think it was just, yeah, it was a lot more precious to me because I had struggled so much to be able to achieve what normal people would have been able to achieve pretty easily. But one thing that really stuck with me was not being was being inadequate, feeling inadequate, and not being able to, yeah, to be normal, I think. And so yeah, it was like a really blow. It's a big blow to my self-esteem, and I just like I was a really shy kid to begin with, and so this just really didn't help. And so yeah, it was just, yeah, it was a really hard time, and it's really hard to kind of like think of myself as as an author, as a writer. And so it took like a long, most of my life really, to be able to kind of come to terms with those feelings of being able to um yeah, to feel like I'm able to present my work, and I am not, I'm not handicapped in any way, and so I think that, yeah, it was just, yeah, and so it's just like a lot of growth and a lot of seminars and being able to um kind of face my fears of looking at me as a small child and saying, you're good enough, that you can do this, right? And I think, it was, yeah, a tough journey, but I published my first book when I was 20, and never looked back from there.
Yes, and congratulations again, Mr. Joel. You did it. Many people with learning disability develop incredible resilience and problem solving skills. How did you navigate a world not designed to your brain before or forge a specific kind of writer's perseverance in you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you like practically is like a lot of like just using spell check. I think, right, like spelling, even today it's really tough for me, and being able to string together like the sentences in the right order and the right spelling is it's hard. And so being able to use technology has, I think, helped me. But it's really just been sort of like putting in the hours, and I have wonderful parents who really encouraged me, and they sat down, they would read to me, and they spent that extra time. um and yeah, I think it's just like having a really good support network really helped me. uh and that's, yeah, that was, I think that was really, yeah, I was really blessed. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else. I think, yeah, having some good teachers who recognized my learning disabilities at a young age and were able to, um, yeah, take some extra time to sit down with me and really make me feel seen, even though I did struggle a lot. Really helped me. And even feeling like, yeah, not good enough and inadequate, the teachers really were kind and patient with me, and they they didn't make me feel like, um yeah, like I was anything less than. And so I think like a lot of it was just, yeah, having the resources, the access. Going to the library obviously was really a um big thing for me. um and yeah, just being able to like dive into these worlds, and being able to, like, use my imagination, and not so worry about, if something was spelled correctly, or if it sounded poetic or not. So I think, yeah, those things really helped.
Truly, truly, it will help. So, Mr. Joel, how did your learning disability train you to see the patterns,
Mhm.
connections, or narratives that neurotypical writers might easily overlook?
Yeah, I think it comes down to being able to like take things slowly. So I learned that John Irving, who wrote the Side of House Rules, The World According to Garp, he had learning or he had dyslexia, and so he looked at it as like a superpower. And seeing other people who had these same like disadvantages or like the same learning disabilities as me really helped. And I think being able to just slow down. I think the great thing about writing is that you don't have to get it right on the first time, and you can take your time. It doesn't have to be, yeah, like you don't have to like spew Shakespeare, the first time that you write something. And so you can, sit down, take your time, you can review it, you can do your own process. There's no, I think with testing, especially, I had a lot of trouble with testing and being able to, do well on these like standardized tests. But with writing, there's no real right or wrong way of doing it. And so I think that's what really helped me, is I was able to approach it in a way that was maybe not so typical, and being able to like just piece it together in my own way. um and yeah, like not worrying about spelling, not worrying about how it looks like or how it sounds out loud, was like able to like, yeah, really help me. And I think that's the great thing about any art, really, is being able to approach it in any sort of way that really that helps you, right? And there's no right or wrong way with creativity. So yeah, that was probably, I think, the biggest win for me.
Mr. Joel, are you planning to publish about disability, learning disabilities?
I wrote about it. So I do have a book called The Secret to Writing Your First Book, The Essential Guide. And I do talk about my, yeah, like growing up with disabilities, and uh, with kind of coping with them in that book. It's more about writing per se, and about like the toolbox of writing, um, and how I approach, like, just kind of writer's block. I talk about publishing. I talk about, pretty much everything under the sun in terms of writing. But I do talk about, kind of my approach and how I overcame those abilities. Whether or not like I kind of focus more on the writing with disabilities and kind of my kind of a mindset around that, I don't know. But I think it's definitely part of who I am. And if I ever talk about writing, I talk about my disabilities, and how to overcome them.
Interesting, Mr. Joel. In what ways did you having to constantly decode and reinterpret information for yourself give your deeper, more intuitive understanding of language and story structure?
I mean, I think it's there's no like magical bullet, unfortunately. I think it was just a matter of trying different things. I think the school system was really hard for me, and so it was just a matter of reading different books about writing, about language, about grammar. I mean, even now I struggle with like naming different parts of the sentences. I can do that to a certain extent, but yeah, it's just, I mean, if you kind of ask me to name like the different parts of a sentence. It's not something I can do intuitively. And so, um, yeah, there's different, books on writing by Stephen King. It's one of my favorites. Sense of Style, Steve Pinker. Those books just really helped me. And I think it's a matter of uh, really just kind of repetition and really, um, again, I think, what I did was I would listen to the audiobook. I would take notes and then read it and then take notes, right? And so coming at it with like from different sides really helped me. And it really, I think, helped form the beginning of I guess, the building blocks of able to be able to, figure out how to string a sentence together, how to spell words, and how to eventually write a book.
Mr. Joel, every writer has a process, but yours is likely born from necessity. Can you describe a specific technique or habit you developed to work with your brain that actually improves your final draft?
Hmm. I think it's a matter of just really paying attention to the world around me. I think maybe, I don't know if that's a superpower, but really just like taking note of the small things in life. Um, and always, there's the joke about, don't piss off a writer because they'll write you in their next novel. And so I think that's like really true. And it's like the small things people don't realize. I had actually had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he's like, "Oh, you're using me for my next your next book." I'm like, "Yeah, everything that I process, that I compute, that I experience is fodder for my next novel, right?" And I think, I think that's an important part, is being able to just take note of maybe the small things, whether it's how the leaves rustle in the wind, or the sound of a train, that sort of things. Like, I don't think a lot of people necessarily pay too much attention to. They get very like focused on what they have to do, on their life, and so forth. I think me being able to kind of like open myself up to these different experiences and being able to take note, to mentally store them, in my brain, so I can use them for, yeah, the next scene that I write or the next character I develop. um I think sort of really, it's not something I think that comes to a lot of people, and being able to connect the dots as well. um that's, I think, not I've it took me a while to realize that not everybody has that power to be able to take something from modern day and put it into ancient Rome, for example, right? You might not think of something that happens today as relevant to a story that takes place 2000 years ago, but if you kind of strip away the essence of, the technology and the, I guess, whatever, the cars and the modern day life, and bring it back 2000 years, and you can connect the humanity in it. um yeah, I don't think a lot of people can do that. I don't know if that's like a necessarily a something that's because of my learning disabilities, being able to kind of connect the dots, or being able to make leaps in logic that not other people can easily do. But that's always been something that I've been really good at, is being able to see like the patterns, or see how I can put this all together in a way that makes sense and is coherent. um so yeah, I mean, I think, hopefully hopefully that answers your question.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, Mr. Joel. So, how's your relationship with the spelling, grammar, or syntax change? Do you
Mm.
see the rules of writing differently than a traditional trained writer?
I think, yes, I think that I see them less as I think, if you're a classically trained writer, if you're writing an essay, obviously that's very important. I've never been someone who can um necessarily like write a structured essay that can give, a 5 point argument. My writing has always been very I like down to earth, I would say. Very um I guess I want to say real, but it's not very academic. And that's always been the case. And I say that to my clients when I'm ghostwriting as well. Is like, if you want an academic paper, if you want an academic story, then I'm not the writer for you. But if you want something that's real, emotional, and like most people can understand, then I can do that for you. Um, and I think so for me, it's like not that the spelling and grammar and syntax aren't important, but I think I look for the emotion behind the words. Like, how can I convey the emotion? Whereas people more mainly come from it is like, how can I make this look right? How can I make the sentence sound smart? Right? People want to sound smart. And I think a lot of people who are more classically trained, they try to look smart and say something, use big words and big, long, long sentences and long paragraphs. Whereas I don't come from it in that way. I say, okay, what is the essence of you trying to say? What is the emotion behind it? And how can I convey that in a way that may not necessarily be, may not necessarily sound like you're an academic or you're, in the 10th, percentile of smart people in the world, but it can connect. And I think being down to earth, being able to convey something in a sort of simple, easygoing manner, and is sort of, yeah, again, something that I'm really good at, and something I think a lot of people can actually connect to. Because let's say I'm not going to be the next Shakespeare, I'm not going to be the next like academic, right? But I can connect with you one to one and be on the same level as you. So I think, yeah, that's sort of how I see language. And I don't see it as, the most important thing out there. I see it as something that is, yeah, so as a tool to be used, not necessarily something that is meant to be, right or wrong.
Mr. Joel, as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
The short and long term goals, well, obviously to get this book published,
Hmm.
I want to, yeah, hopefully it does well. Um, but yeah, so with Ivory General, I came to it because I was really fascinated with Rome, and then I became fascinated with Carthage, which at this time of during the Second Punic War was a big rival of Rome. And I hadn't really heard much of Carthage. Um, I didn't know, like, yeah, because all the records had been burnt by Rome. And so it's really hard to sort of piece together Carthage. And there's not a lot of stories about Carthage. You hear a lot about Julius Caesar and
Hmm.
Anthony and Cleopatra, right? There's those like classical Roman stories, right? So we as a society know Rome, but what we don't know is Carthage. We don't. There's a lot of fascinating stories about Carthage, and they're not as well documented. There's, the founding of Carthage. There's Dido, uh, and how she came to, yeah, found the city, and there's a whole legend behind that. That's not, it's a bit popular, I would say, because they made an opera out of it. Christopher Marlowe made a play, but it's not very well known. And there's a whole bunch of the stories about Carthaginians, and they're such a fascinating people. And so really my long-term goal for my narrative historical fiction is to write more stories about Carthage. I've got a whole slew of ideas of characters I want to create and stories I want to tell. And again, they're not, yeah, I don't understand. Like, part of me just doesn't understand why they're not so popular, why we don't know more about Carthage. And I get that we don't, we just have secondhand sources, secondhand information from, the Greeks and the Romans, because yeah, Rome burnt Carthage to the ground and burnt all their firsthand sources. But yeah, I really want to kind of bring Carthage back to life and give it, I think, the place that it deserves. Because, yeah, I mean, like when you think of ancient history, yeah, you think of Rome, you think of Athens, you think of Sparta, right? Those are like the main stories that we hear. And I just feel like they're great stories, don't get me wrong, but they're just told so often. And so I think having Carthage sort of be alongside Rome and Greece would be great. And so being able to tell some of those stories and get people interested in history again, is, yeah, that's definitely one of my longer term goals. Um, and yeah, I don't know how long this is going to take, but I feel like it's definitely, I have enough stories for a lifetime, really,
Mhm.
um to really tell. And I think, yeah, they're great stories that we're just missing as a society.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Joel. I'm looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author like you?
Yeah, I think so just keep at it. Uh I don't have, again, I don't really have any magic sauce. There's nothing that I can really say that um would give people the magic bullet. I think it's a matter of just keep going. It's really a lifelong pursuit, and just keep learning, keep writing, keep working on your craft. The 10,000 hour rule is real, and it's important. There's a reason why you have to keep writing. I mean, Brandon Sanderson, who is the, obviously the famous fantasy author, he said you essentially have to like write 4 books, I think it is, before you publish one, right? And so that's, there's like 5 years of training before you can publish your first book. And it took me 8 years to write this book. And so don't be daunted by the time it takes. Have fun with it. I think that's important, because if you're not having fun, really, you're not gonna, they're not gonna keep with it. You're not gonna uh, get past those rejections, or when people say no, or when people aren't as interested as you would like. um yeah, I think, yeah, so continue writing, continue, have fun with it. And for people with learning disabilities, or people who have dyslexia, or anything really, I think, for me, technology has been a godsend. Having spell check, having Grammarly, voice dictation, stuff like that is really important, and it can really help you. It can sort of level the playing field, if you will. And yeah, if you're like me and have trouble with spelling, use those tools that you have available. And don't feel like for a long time I felt less than or not good enough, because I relied heavily on spell check and voice dictation and all these tools that kind of didn't make me feel like a real writer. But I want to reiterate that, yes, just because you use those tools doesn't make you any less than or any more of a writer, or and so, yeah, I think it's okay to use whatever is available. And with the modern day, yeah, sort of, there's all types of tools available. So if there's something you're not proficient at, or something that you need help in, then you can use those tools to improve, your spelling, your sentence structure, your yeah, your story structure, whatever it is.
Well, thank you for that advice, Mr. Joel. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Oh, I think anything by Isaac Asimov. um, I read a lot of science fiction as a kid. I love uh, Isaac Asimov. Um, I think just like he has like such an easygoing style. His stories are very imaginative. I think they're a little bit dated now, but they're still. I think you can learn a lot about the craft of writing from their stories, and they're just fun. I love his robotic books. I love the Foundation series. Um, if you want to learn about writing, obviously a classic, Stephen King's book about writing is you know I read that every you know once a year or every couple of years, and it's just so much knowledge and information and so much great experience that you can utilize in that book. So those are a couple.
Hmm. Well, thank you for that recommended books, Mr. Joel. And how has being a writer with learning disability changed your definition of how good writing truly is?
Mm, yeah. So I really do think that anybody can be a writer. I think that it's it used to be that it was a little bit of a guard wall, was the saying, the a garden wall, where you had to do these certain steps, go overcome these hurdles, to become quote a writer, right? You had to be published in a big publisher or a big magazine, and that was the only way that you could get that validation. But I really do think that anybody can be a writer, especially like with all the resources that you can find online, whatever it is. If you're not sure how to publish a book, there's resources. If you're not sure how to structure a story, if you want to write a memoir, like what are things you need to know, it's all online, it's all freely available, and it's just a matter of doing the work and and getting down to it and structuring your life in a way that gives you that time to do an hour a day or half an hour a day of writing. And so I really do believe anybody can do it, and that it's available to anyone. There really is no barriers anymore. There used to be, you know yeah, publishers and literary agents, and there's still those things, but they're definitely, you can quickly sidestep them and still, be called a real writer. So there's lots of tools and resources that you can use. um so yeah, you don't need a literary agent, or you don't need like this big publishing firm behind you to be a real writer these days.
Mr. Joel, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 to be in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101, mental health 101, and Bible verses 101. Science 101 and Sex 101 in its second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Joel, if you had to summarize the ultimate gift your learning disability has given you as a writer, what would it be?
Hmm. I think grit. I think the fortitude to just persevere and keep going, to get past all those self-doubts and anything that those voices in the head that say you can't do it, you're not a real writer, you'll never accomplish anything. And yeah, I think to be able to brush those aside, or to push them away and to keep going, that really is I think the biggest lesson I've learned in life.
Mr. Joel Harris, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books, most especially your new one?
Yeah, so you can just go to joelmarkharris.com. You can sign up to my mailing list there. You can check out my books. You can check out my movie, learn a little bit more about me, and yeah, it has everything that you could possibly want about me.
Yes, yes, people support Mr. Joel Harris because if you support him for sure, more and more empowering books to come, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Joel, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Modicon people, see you soon.